choosing to sit
we're-
here
yeah.
and play League of Legends all day and coach and do the podcast.
Yeah, screw the gym, man.
Who needs physical fitness?
Yeah. Nonsense.
All right, Curtis, I'm going to start with a funny story,
Boom.
right?
All right, let's go.
So this is my Friday Grandmaster coaching session.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin rocks up. You know Zethal?
Oh, yeah. I love Kevo.
A bit of context about Kevo. He's from Curtis Midland Academy,
Yep.
but he off-rolls jungle.
Yep.
So we decided, I want to expand my knowledge, joins the Soul 2, joins my academy. This is so funny, right?
Here we go.
Comes off his base, his
Yep.
first base, 2
Yep.
control wards,
Yep.
right? And I said, tell me what's going on here?
Mhm.
What's going on here? And he said, well, I do this in mid lane.
Right.
I was like, does Curtis tell you to do this in mid lane? And he said, well, he hasn't really commented on it or anything.
I haven't even seen it.
Oh, really?
I've noticed it.
Okay. And so the problem with this, as a jungler, you're already you're just starving, okay? And the difference between, and then he's like, oh yeah, I do this on mid lane because it's like, they kill the ward and I can reward and it's fine, right? But as a jungler, you can't just stay for the next wave. Because then I was like, well, how are you going to get your items? Like,
Right, because you're so limited.
because you're limited to your camps. If your camps are all off the map, you can't just
You
go.
can't just get extra gold.
You can't just get additional
Yeah,
gold, right?
yeah.
You can't just stay for the next wave or stay
You
for the next
screw everyone
phase.
if you do that. You screw
That's
your entire
right.
team, yeah. It's interesting.
Which was fascinating to me,
Yeah.
that he never thought of it that way.
That's interesting.
Coming from a mid lane perspective.
I mean, I never buy 2 pinks either.
Okay, that's
Ever.
just because I was going to say, are you sure?
General.
Are you sure Curtis didn't tell you that? Because that's a lot of gold.
I've never bought 2 pinks before, ever.
Really?
And to be honest, I just didn't see. I haven't seen him do that. Whenever I watch Kevin's VODs, I never review a VOD that's like close in the early game.
Got it.
When I review games with Kevin, it's always like, I'm dominating, how can I dominate harder? Or like, here I'm 5-0, how can I carry this game type thing.
So you'll skip through all that.
I mean, no, I don't view it as like I guess I'm not looking at items.
Yeah, you
like,
wouldn't be
you've got
looking
that
at
much
that.
gold anyway.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's like usually the games with Kevin I review
Yeah.
anyway. Because like he knows how to review his own silly mistakes.
And it's not like you're looking at builds or items.
No, I
'cause,
don't give a
you
shit.
expect someone in
It's-
Grandmaster to know.
Exactly. I don't talk about builds for anyone above like master. That's your responsibility. Yeah, but that's interesting. I never really thought of it like that.
And he's just like running out of base 2 controls as as a jungler. Your first base, I'm like,
Yeah, that's
you're
intense.
gonna have 0 gold. Like, I'm all for control wars, right? Like, I think Vision wins games. Vision, I mean, it does win games. It's amazing, right? Like, you can do so much with a control. We'd set up objectives. I always say 2 control wards are good when it's like, the third
It's like a
drag.
close
It's like
game,
it's like the 18-minute mark. You can start buying 2 controls. Like, you and the support, but even for laners, like, 1 control, like, that's max. Like,
Yeah, as a mid laner, you don't.
that's why I was so shocked by it initially. I was like, wait, don't you want all the gold in the
But I
world?
do buy a lot in mid game. Yeah, I do buy in metric ton. Oftentimes in mid game, I'll put one down, and then I'll buy another one. Especially when we're contesting for control around an objective. Like I'll put one, and then sometimes what I'll actually do, I'll also have one on the map already. Say it's in the mid game, and I kind of want to go to the side lane. I'll come mid first, like get control. Sometimes I'll put a pink board down there just so we can like deny their vision and stuff. Then I'll go top, and then sometimes I even move my pink for myself in the side lane. Sometimes I have done that if I am staying in the side lane for an extended period of time because I've already got that control down.
That
and
makes
like,
sense, yeah.
But that's like when I'm really far ahead, obviously. But yeah, it's interesting for sure. Haven't thought of it like that.
Another question I was pondering. I came up. This is a shower thought. From your perspective as a mid laner, how many times do you reckon it happens in a game, or just from your coaching sessions, have you been like, if my jungler was to come right now, we would win the game? Does that happen often? Is that something you think about? Like my jungler has to come here, and if we did, we would win the game. Like, you could like adapt to it. It's all good that he's not coming.
Yeah. Because like that's not the way I frame it.
That's not the way you frame it.
I don't
Is that
frame
right?
it like that mentally, but like yes, but I don't frame it like that.
Yeah.
Like I guess the thing is as a mid laner in solo queue is that a lot of junglers are scared to gank mid.
That's right. We do. Overall, that's what I see as well.
You
because
don't get ganked that much.
with my coaching as well, I always say it's like, well, which side of the which side are you pathing towards? Because
Right.
your mindset is the side, and then
It's like
automatically
that
you're thinking about the
hover
side lane. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's very easy to gravitate from away from it. Sometimes I catch myself, but this came up as well recently because I had a game yesterday or the other week that I was playing, and this jungler just like ganked mid. I was like, how was he just ganking mid and just killing mid? And
Yeah.
it was like a weird matchup.
Wait, you mean you were playing it in this
I was
game?
playing against it.
Right.
And it was something of a weird matchup, like a Ziggs mid into Xerath, and you'd think
Okay.
you would just leave that alone, right? But he was just killing, like.
No. Yeah, okay, so there's a lot to this. So first things first, as a trend, I have noticed at Diamond Plus, no one ganks mid. In my coaching sessions and even playing.
So you just review cut and you just don't just one.
Usually, so what's weird? So
What happened?
Niall, for example, I've coached him and he went from Platinum 3 to Master. And he, in a year, which is incredible. It's a huge climb. And what I've noticed with him, he's playing Zoe, right? And we've been really going through that process with Zoe and getting into the details. And I always thought that, you know, once you start to get to like D2 plus, the game becomes more 2v2 oriented. But a lot of the time he's just stuck in an island, or no one plays around mid. It's just him, it's isolated 1v1, and he has to kind of shove and move to somewhere else, which is so fascinating to me, especially when you're playing with a Zoe. I always thought that people would want to play around you. And this was a trend, especially within my NA reviews. It's very rare that you just get ganked. It's just like, or just on an island, no one comes mid, and then it's just everyone's played elsewhere. And then, because I think him or Ting brought it up to me saying like, junglers never come mid either way. Like, my jungler doesn't come mid and their jungler doesn't come mid. I just get stuck, which actually kind of rings true. I mean, maybe why I've been having a lot of success with Orianna, because I'm kind of left on an island all the
And you
time.
just chill out on the scale.
I just kind of chill and just dominate my opponent because Ori's so good in the 1v1. That is very interesting. But in terms of the other thing you said, you were talking about how what was the last thing you said? You were talking about how if they come mid. Oh yeah, sorry, the Ziggs versus Xerath matchup. Yeah. Okay, so what junglers don't understand, I don't expect them to understand, is that there are certain matchups where, like, certain champions, that if they get one kill, especially in a mage v mage matchup, there is no counterplay anymore.
Is that because they
And some
just
kills that also don't mean jack shit either.
Yeah.
So for example, I want to give you a specific example.
Yeah.
It happened to me yesterday. I think it was yesterday or the day before. I played Ori into Cassio, and then I got ganked, and Cassio got a kill. It was actually versus the guy who was in the Soul 2, Captain Tofu.
Oh yeah.
He's Olaf.
Yeah.
And with the game, I versed him. And he's shit scared of me versing me in Soul 2.
He is, because
He has a mental block.
you gave him a traumatic experience or something. You invaded
killed him on his
as
Raptors or
Raptors as
something.
Rumble or something.
Yeah,
like last year or
Yeah,
something.
he has mental block. And he played really well the early game. He he was really far ahead. He killed top.
Yeah.
And then his Cassio mid was getting dominated. And I was like, obviously, Ori's a counter to Cassio. And then this Cassio, he came mid and the Cassio flash ulted me and killed me. But I didn't blow flash and I just died. And then I come back and it doesn't change my matchup. Like, Ori will always win no matter what. And I kept getting pressure. And then he came back mid, and then we just countered it, and he died once, and it was just ended.
This game over, yeah.
And I remember thinking, all he had to do was just continue to go top, leave us on an island. Cassio can kind of, yes, she'll get shit on, but you can kind of make up for it elsewhere. But then there are other matchups that are much, much closer, that one kill can completely change it. For example, Ori v Victor. If you play Ori v Victor and either of the sides get one kill, it can be absolute destruction on the other side. And I don't even know.
So that's interesting. That's also a mage versus mage.
It's a mage
matchup.
v mage, but it's they got the same range.
Yeah.
Whereas Cassio's so low range, there's no trading.
Got it.
Like, even if she has damage, she can't use it on the Ori if the Ori's really good, obviously. In lower elo probably wouldn't matter, but we're talking Master Plus here, right? So there's this level of matchup intricacy that only mid laners will know, or people with champion mastery really know how. You know, that's where you would have to really get into discussion with that jungler, right? If you're in a team or something, but only the mid laner will really know how snowbally a matchup is. But then there are some you can kill them 3 times and it doesn't really matter at all.
No.
So it's just case by case basis, and even game by game basis. There are some games where Ori can get a lot of kills, but the enemy has too much threat and it doesn't really matter. But there's some games where Ori gets 1 kill and it's enough to take over the game. Just based on threat. So it's incredibly complex, an incredibly complex scenario that I don't even think really should aim to think about that as a jungler. I just think you should really simplify it as a jungler. It's like a kill's a kill, if I'm there, type thing, and then you have a rough hypothesis, and you can only know so much about the game. Otherwise, you just get overwhelmed, right?
Yeah, you don't want to be. I mean, I think if the higher elo you go, that's the one thing that I've been sort of thinking a bit about more. Maybe this is to my detriment as well. It's like, what do my laners want? I've been thinking recently. My lane objectives is like, what's going on mid lane a bit more, because I started to avoid it a bit too much. And then I had like these games where people were winning through mid, and I was like, fuck, maybe I need to start thinking about that a bit more.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think the way I would view that is just ask questions, get specific, just one by one. Like, you don't know, like try and have a bunch of mid laners you can ask questions or something. Right.
Could use the resource in the mid lane.
Yeah,
And then
I mean,
just get in there like, hey guys, like,
yeah, ask a
from
question.
a mid lane's perspective.
Yeah, you can just ask a question, be like at, the main Victor, and then find how the matchup goes. That's what.
What happens if it's Yasuo versus like a Yone or something mid? They both have Ignite, no TBs. Is that a snowballing matchup?
Yes, it is. It is, but again, it depends on the comp. Like, there are some games that like.
Where you could just win through somewhere else where.
There's so many games with Yasuo can just get like 2 kills and he doesn't do jack shit.
Yeah.
There's too much CC and too much like bruises that like no squishies and.
It's like a full AD or something like that.
Yeah,
team.
it's just like champions that have like point and click abilities. Like again, it's just true situation.
So it depends mostly on what your team, what the enemy is.
Yeah, because like the most obvious example, you think of any immobile mage, right? You think of those Cassios, you think of the Syndra, you think of the Victor and the Ori. When I see on the enemy team Jarvan and Camille, right? I don't want to pick Victor, even if it's a great matchup in the 1v1. I just hate it. It just, even if I get a kill into the Ori, if I'm playing Victor into Ori and I get a kill, I can't do anything with it because I can't posture enough aggressively to poke that Ori under tower because I'm just gonna die. Whereas if I'm versing an Olaf and maybe like an Olaf and a Fiora, I get 1 kill in that game. I can take over the entire game.
Yeah, because they can't do anything to you.
So it really depends on the amount of threat coming from other roles. And there's some games where like, yeah, I'm playing Cassio, I can 1v9, other games I can't. So it's very situational. Hence why I'm at the point right now where if I see mobility from the enemy jungler, I would rather blind pick, enchant with mobility and get counted purely because then I can impact the game more.
Got it. So with your blind pick, you'll default to more mobile champions because you don't want to just play an immobile mage against a really bad comp.
That's right. So that's why I had a game the other day where I had to blind pick, but I knew their jungler and their top laner, and I had to blind pick something that had mobility mid, and I knew that I wasn't going to be played around, like just the way the draft had gone, and I'm like, well, fuck, I don't want to sit here and just pick Ori. I'm just going to die. So I just picked Fizz, and I got countered by Aurelia. But it's fine because I just kind of went even. I farmed, and then like naturally we just kind of win the game because other lanes got counter pick, and like I just played 2v2s. I just throw my ult at 6 of the Aurelia and the jungle ganks for the kill. But they can't kill me because I'm Fizz. So like I think that there are games like that where it's just better just to get counter picked in the 1v1 but have mobility because you deny their.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, you can still do things rather than just sit there and slowly losing the game.
Yeah, and you just do not. But you also sometimes simply doing nothing is winning, in a way. But I can't do nothing sometimes on Ori. Like I will die no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just getting Jarvan ulted and Camille.
Well, this is interesting. So I want to talk about. Funny, this kind of draws into one of the topics I wanted to talk about again today, Nathan. Was we talk a lot about champion mastery.
Love champion mastery.
Right. So it's probably one of our big mantras in both of our communities, and we talk a lot about that and the importance of champion mastery. And over time, I've really tried to think about. A common question I get is like champion pools, and what champ should I play, and just champ pools come up a lot, just in general. And in the past, I've had strong opinions on pools, and I've been confused. I've been back and forth on this topic a lot over the past 2 years. And rather than answering it like now with my thoughts in the current moment, I took a second to think about this over the weekend and think about, if I were to get asked this question in 6 months from now, based off what I've noticed over the past 2 years of League, where do I think the game is going, and what would be the best quality advice I could give for someone when creating a pool in the long run? Now, we know that champion mastery is a huge part of the solo queue experience in terms of getting results, in terms of getting the most out of the game, just everything. Everything hinges on champion mastery.
Yeah, it's the step one.
Step one. But what I've noticed, Nathan, and what I've come to the conclusion is that I think I've actually underestimated champion mastery. I mean, it's hard to say that because I know we talk about it so much, but even more than I realized. And the reason being is I think the future of League of Legends, because the game is getting so complex and is getting so fast paced and is getting so chaotic, if you don't have a lot of champion mastery, like I'm talking a metric ton of champion mastery, I think in a way you can't play the game anymore.
Yeah, I've literally thought about this as well.
It's the barrier. So you could get away back in the day of playing a champ at 60% or 70% mastery and getting away with it and like winning games. But now I think it's gotten to the point where the best players are just really, really good at specific champions.
There's a huge difference that I notice with jungle. Champion mastery, the jungle clear doing it perfectly is actually a very hard skill. Like very few players with their champion clear perfectly. The difference between that getting to that crab level 4 and level 3 is different game of League of Legends.
Yep.
And like I noticed this, I've recently picked up Jarvan, right? And I've had to work on the clear because I started like some games you just have to full clear, right? And then I was like finishing my full clear at like 3:23 or whatever, and versus like you can do it by like 3:14 like leashless, like having that option of the leashless full clear is so like different game. Like if I don't have the leash and I can still get to the crab and be level 4, like that's actually the key thing for jungle. Is I think that the clear and that champion mastery in the clear, you got to practice that so much, and it's really boring.
But notice how what you're just saying there, that is the ability to adapt. So what you're saying is that like if I don't get a leash, I still have this option, and if shit hits the fan, I can still do this, and I can minimize this. Like with champion mastery, whether it's with your clears, whether it's just with your overall game understanding,
gives more options.
You have more options, and now with the game of League, you have to be like water. We say this. I mean, I say this all the time in my coaching sessions. You got to be like Bruce Lee. You got to be like water. You got to be able to adapt. You can have a plan. It's going to go to shit instantly. Okay, pivot. Next plan. What's the win con?
Champion mastery is always at the core.
Yeah,
what is it? Okay, this has happened. How does a good game still look like for this champion here?
And yeah, and so given that I've started to realize, holy shit, and how important this is. I've even noticed it within my own games. How I now am playing. I'm just playing Ori on my main, right? Like Ori's my default. Like no matter what happens in the meta, no matter what, I'm just playing Ori, and I get asked questions like, "Curtis, is Orianna good?" Like sometimes I find it even hard to answer that question because I'm just so good at Orianna.
It like breaks.
It breaks everything.
Yeah.
It's like I just dominate anyone, and I know how to play every matchup flawlessly. I will out micro anyone with Orianna. I feel like I'm at such a high level with Ori that I'm confident I could get like top 15 EU really easily with Orianna.
The only way you like lose like a lot consistently is if you would be versing other players that would exceptionally good at their champion. That's like a counter, like a hard counter.
Yeah, I only lose when I'm versing really fucking good players when they're playing their mains.
Yeah.
Like hence why I struggle against the most Katarina one tricks because they're exceptional at Katarina. Not even because the matchup's good, but they understand their champions so fucking well. So I've come to the conclusion, tying this all back to champ pool stuff, right? I've asked myself, well, the biggest problem we see is that the meta, right? We see, okay, oh sure, Curtis, you might tell me that champ mastery is number 1, but then what happens when X champion gets nerfed, blah, 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 blah. But what I've come to the conclusion with is that, like, yes, I get it. I get that your champ might be weaker on a patch than another. But my argument is that if you have a good, like, a somewhat spread out champ pool of, like, 3 champs that you just all in on, I don't see a world in which all 3 of these champions are going to be straight up poor enough that you can't climb with them if you have a lot of champion mastery. So I think a champ pool of the future, what it would look like is you would have champions, like 3 champions that aren't really OP. Like you don't just pick new OP champs. You don't pick really weak champs.
You'll most likely never have the OP champ in your pool.
No, you will never have the OP champ in your pool. You're never going to be able to abuse the OP champ. But what you'll be able to do is ideally you're picking champs that are just consistent. And there's champions across time that are just incredibly consistent. So from a mid lane, we have champs like Victor is never like I mean, since the change of the X score, Victor can't really be really weak. And you always kind of have a place, same as Ori. Anivia is always good in solo queue, no matter what. You have champions like Fizz. Even the patches that are weak for Fizz, like, there are still going to be decent Fizz games. Like, there are certain core solo queue champions that fundamentally, they're not ever the most OP, but they're never the most weak. So they're the ones you got to identify. You don't want to pick the flavor of the month Viegos. You don't want to pick the flavor
Things
of the
that will
month.
just get nerfed.
No, you don't want to pick those ones. You want to pick champions, ideally, that
They're
are
like fundamental for the role. So
fundamental to the role.
I guess if you think about it for jungle, like that would be like Shaco,
yeah,
Kane.
Kane, yeah. Lee Sin can never really be that bad, surely. Like, when has Lee Sin ever been shocking?
He was shocking at the beginning of the season.
Right. Yeah, but like, you wouldn't. Yeah, there'd still be games where you could play Lee
Yeah,
Sin.
you probably could.
You wouldn't be able to pick him every game. What I'm getting is you'd have one of them, but between like imagine if you had a pool like this. Like, imagine if you had a pool where it was like, Shaco, Kane, Lee Sin. Or maybe you had one AP. So
You want an AP.
maybe you had like, okay, Shaco,
I think Evelyn will always be a
Shaco,
jungler.
Kane, Evelyn.
Yeah.
No matter what meta you're in, you're gonna be able to play one of them pretty consistently, and you're gonna alternate between the three of them. Like, within a season, one of them is gonna be pretty strong. I guarantee you, at one point in time. So, like, I just think our focus when making a pool obviously needs to be, you know, champions you love. You got to really enjoy them, but you got to think long term, and you got to really think about, am I willing to develop champion master and the champion over the long run? Because I think the future league, that's where we're heading.
There's people just specialize in their champions.
I mean, just finish up my Kiana guide, right? Just finished my Kiana guide, and I talk a lot about bathing in that video, and I was talking about how special that guy is, and how he reached a new level of the game that people didn't think was
Possible.
I just didn't think it was possible. Just through sheer champ mastery. He played that champ when it wasn't even good, but he made it good. He's the one who made people realize how good this champion was.
Is there a certain difference though? Because the skill cap with certain champs, like Champion Mastery with Kiana, would be different. Like, there's so many options for Champion Mastery. What's a very than Annie mid?
Yes, but there's a
Like, do you think that there
I
could
agree,
be a next level Annie player? Can that be achieved on some champ like Annie versus Kiana?
No, they're different. The skill cap is much lower.
There you
but
go.
but I'm not telling people to be a one trick. So I feel like if you could develop, imagine if you could develop, right, over 2 years, incredibly high champion mastery on 3 champs.
3 champs you could, yeah. Yep, absolutely.
You know, like, and yes, one of those might not be a high skill cap as the other, but like, you know, you're setting yourself up for success in the long run. Is all I'm saying. Because the way I view it, Nathan, like, if you even look at the champs for you that got you the most success in solo queue, like, no matter what, like, Udyr got you the most success in solo queue this year,
Yeah.
and that was the champ that you had the most games on. That was the champ that you knew the most.
Well, technically, my win rate actually Nunu actually.
Right. Yeah, but Udyr, come on, you played the most games with Udyr, didn't you?
This season.
Yeah, this season.
It's actually moved up to Xin Zhao now, and I just have
Right.
not had much success on Xin
Right.
Zhao.
But you got a lot of LP with Udyr as well.
Definitely, yeah.
Right, that was a huge part of your climb.
Udyr, Nunu, Olaf as well.
I feel like Olaf is your identity.
Yeah.
I mean, and look, this kind of ties into one of the things I was going to say to you, dude. Is like, I just don't get why you play Jarvan.
Yeah. I'm lost.
Like,
as well.
I'm
I
at a
think- I
point,
think
Nathan,
I
where,
think
like-
we're gonna pack it up.
Yeah, like, tying into this, what we're talking about today, right?
Yeah.
And I think what I'm coming to the conclusion as well, like, to perform at a very high level of challenger, champ mastery is just the crux.